Hey, what's up? You're listening to Music Posting? I'm Alex.
And I'm Astrid, and today we're reviewing the new The Smile album, Wall of Eyes.
Wall of Eyes.
Wall of
Ooh.
Ooh. What are the eyes? What is the wall?
What is the wall? What is the eyes? For some reason, it gives me like a very ghostly impression. I don't know. You know
It's
what I
it's very
mean?
mystical. You have the album cover that's full of these sort of creepy eyes. I sort of see like little hairs on the album cover. It's kind of it's very mystical. I could see that.
Yeah, like I could see it looking like the layers of skin with hair growing out. And
That's exactly what I see too. Like
interesting. Yeah.
dermal layers.
Yeah, dermal layers with like it's like
Little hairs.
when something is so unsettling that it makes your hair stand up. You know what I mean?
Mmm. And all the
Um
eyes looking down on the little hairs.
Yeah, I also see it as a mountain range commingling with an ocean with, barren trees and a desolate landscape.
Do you think that this album is rather environmental?
I think so. I think there's a lot about, environmental stuff, but also, like, the human environment, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the human landscape.
Sorry, I'm actually just so interested to talk about this album because I do think
Yeah.
thematically it was very interesting, and I think a lot of topics that Alex and I usually like talking about. This was
Yeah.
released on January 26th. It's an art rock outlet from Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, who are best known for their work in Radiohead. And then you have Tom Skinner on the drums, who I don't know as much about, but apparently he's been in some jazz bands like Sons of Kemet and London Brew. And those are the three people that make the sounds on this album. And it's been getting a lot of hubbub. It's hard to ignore the hype.
It has been getting a lot of hubbub, and I think that, Skinner, like, you can definitely feel the jazz
You
influence
feel that,
on the
yeah.
drums. Like, the drums have this very, like, low-key, soft, jazzy kind of tone to them.
Mm.
Like, jazz drums are known for being very, like well, sometimes they can be very soft and warm, and I feel like that was channeled very well on this project here.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Also, Tom York, Johnny Greenwood, alt rock legends. Is it safe to say alt rock legends? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, Radiohead is a pretty big band. I'd actually love to just talk about my expectations going in,
Yeah,
because I mean,
me
going
too.
so I didn't listen to the last the Smile record in totality. I remember hearing like a couple songs off of it, but I never actually listened to the full thing.
Yeah,
Uh, the,
neither did I.
yeah, the main chunk of my listening experience with these three musicians is like through Radiohead, which I have actually listened to in totality. I used to work a software job for a little bit, and something
Mhm.
I would do to just like keep myself focused would be I would pick like an artist that I didn't have much experience with, and I would listen
Yeah,
to their entire discography at work in like one day. And so
that's
I did that.
actually awesome.
Yeah, I did that at for Radiohead one day. So I started at Pablo Honey, and I went all the way through A Moon-Shaped Pool. And the only one I really didn't like was Pablo Honey. I don't think that's a controversial opinion.
I don't think so, and I
Yeah.
think the band would probably agree with you.
Yeah, and I wasn't as into like some stuff that maybe other people are into, but I was really into the two album run Hail to the Thief into In Rainbows, which In Rainbows is like my favorite because I think it's like very garage rock. So that's like my favorite Radiohead album. I think I own that on vinyl. It's weird that I'm not sure, but that's like the one Radiohead album that I'm really into. But I'm no
Yeah.
expert. What are you into Radiohead?
Um, I also had a moment where I listened through their entire discography. Um, this was before Moonshaped Pool came out though, but in high
Mm.
school, I I just for some reason really got into them, and I would listen through each album like several times. So I'm super super familiar with every Radiohead album except for The King of Limbs, just because I tried listening to it. I gave it a shot. I went through it once, but I wasn't really feeling it. Um, I actually did kind of enjoy Pablo Honey, but I
That's
think if I
funny.
were to it is fun. Yeah, well, I think if I were to revisit it, who knows how my opinion would change.
Hey, I mean,
Um,
some people like Pablo Honey. I think that's fair.
yeah, I think it's fun, but I think it's really interesting how Do you know the whole story how Creep was, like, so big and huge, they got so sick and tired of playing it that on the bends,
Yeah.
they wrote a song about Creep and how it was, like they like, My Iron Lung on the bends?
Mhm.
So, that's a song that is, it's like crutches and stuff, and they wrote it about Creep because they were so sick and tired of Creep,
Yeah.
and, I think that level of self-awareness is pretty cool.
Yeah. I respect either hating your own songs or playing them still even if you don't like them. I mean, either one is valid. I know,
I
like
think so, yeah.
like Nirvana hated playing. Well, at least Kurt hated playing "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Like he would always like fuck it up on purpose while he was playing, and uh, but then there are other bands that like playing their hits. I think
Yeah.
Creep is like honestly like I understand why it's popular. Like
It's a good song. It's a really good
it's
song. I
really
hate to
catchy.
say it. It's really, really good, and, I don't think it should be hated on, but I can understand the musician's perspective
Yeah,
of, like, one song blowing up, and then you're like, "Oh, but I have all these other really cool songs, why don't you guys listen to that?" And you start
for sure.
resenting that song.
Totally
Um,
understand it.
yeah. So I just quickly, can I hear your favorite Radiohead albums while we're on this tangent?
Well, my favorite is In Rainbows, and then I
Mhm.
also like Hail to the Thief. Um, those two are just Hail to the Thief has like this, and both In Rainbows have sort of this dissident feel to them, or
Yeah.
not like feelings of dissent is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Like I think I'm not exactly read up on the history, but I'm pretty sure one of those albums, if not both, were just put up online for free. I think Hail to the Thief was put on
I
up
think
online for
it
free.
was in Rainbows. It was, they put it up for free or it was, like, pay your own price. I
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Hail to the Thief, but definitely for In Rainbows, they did that.
So
And
I kind of
then
like that era because they were just like, fuck it,
yeah,
let's have fun. And I really like the sounds on In Rainbows. Like I described it earlier, but the garage rock sound, like it sounds like a lot of stuff from that era that I'm also into, like
yeah.
White Stripes and whatnot. Like that kind of stuff is just really fun. I don't know. In
It's
Rainbows is
really
just fun from
beautiful.
Weird Fishes or whatever it's called. I love that song.
Yeah. I think my favorite on In Rainbows is Nude, and I love
Mm.
Weird Fishes. There's so many good songs on that album.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I listened to Hail to the Thief. Honestly, that one might be the one I listen to the most.
Interesting.
Um, but surprisingly, my favorites are the Bends and In Rainbows as well, and potentially OK Computer, but I think the Bends is so underappreciated.
Yeah, there's some good songs on the Bends. Is that the one that has fake plastic trees?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that is probably the best Radiohead song, in my opinion. Like it's like the one that I know it's like a normie pick. I don't care about being normie though. That's a good fucking song.
Yeah, I mean, it's a song that everyone loves for a reason.
Yeah.
But but
And then
anyways,
OK Computer, you can't argue OK Computer. It's like arguing against like the Blue Album from Weezer, you know? Like even if you're a Radiohead hater, you cannot argue that OK Computer is bad. That album is like
yeah,
conceptually very cool and at least like changed music, forever. The course
agreed.
of history. So
Agreed. Yeah. I totally agree. Um, but yeah, that's our Radiohead tangent. Do you wanna talk about The Smile?
yeah, I mean, that was basically my thoughts going into it. Did you have any expectations before we jump into the first track?
I didn't know what to expect because I also hadn't listened to the first Smile album.
Yeah.
Um, so I was going into it pretty blind. I was expecting, like, more Radiohead tomfoolery, to be honest, like, I was expect
Tomfoolery, is that a pun?
no pun intended, but thanks for pointing it out. Um, I was expecting, like, something potentially crushing, something a little more low key,
Mm.
something, something more dissonant sounding, um, something that might make me hate my life, but
You didn't get that as much, or did you end up getting that? I guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out, yeah. I mean, short answer, like, mostly yes, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's jump into song A1, Wall of Eyes, which I like when artists split albums up between sides. So there's like A1,
Mm.
A2, A3, A4 here, and then B1, B2, B3, B4. I don't really know if the songs really feel that separated enough to separate it into A and B, but do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if I really noticed too much of a difference.
I was actually gonna ask you,
Okay.
if you knew why they separated it
What
into,
the hell were they doing?
yeah, what were they do? Because I don't think the previous album was separated,
What were
but
they cooking?
yeah, here we have 8 tracks, so it's a more succinct project here. Some songs
But
are
longer
but
songs
longer
on
songs,
average.
yeah, and we have 4 songs on the A track on the A side and 4 songs on the B side. I don't know what exactly the purpose of that was, but it's
Me
cool.
neither. Yeah, I
But it's
respect
cool.
it. Maybe someone
It's
down
cool.
below in our comments can let us know if they feel like they notice the difference between A and B. But do you want to jump into song A1, Wall of Eyes?
Yeah, Wall of Eyes, let's jump into it.
I think it's very easy to like read into this interpretation,
Mhm.
but I feel like this is sort of Tom and company maybe feeling like they've become a marketable product. I mean, they're like stared at behind a
Mm.
wall of eyes, eyes all looking at you, corporate forces, making you create for the dollar. I mean, they've been doing it for so long, and they've already had albums. I mean, we were just talking about In Rainbows and whatnot, putting it up for free, and I feel like they've already sort of stepped away from some of that corporate power, but that in some point, they're a little bit beholden to it. And I think this is really
Yeah.
emphasized by the sounds of laughing rich people, which appear when Tom sings "Let us raise our glasses to what we don't deserve."
Mhm.
Just kind of talking about these rich executives, like what we're not worthy of, so rich and wide. I think it's a lament or like a guilt maybe for where he's at, like a commentary on the state of music or all media or just really any corporation that is like
Yeah.
currently bending to the whims of the profit motive. I just like
Yeah.
imagine a pool of like marketing executives and big suits around a conference table like Will Ferrell and gang from the Barbie movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, I
yeah.
know what you mean, and, it wouldn't be a Tom York project, um,
Tomfoolery.
if it didn't it wouldn't be a tomfoolery project if it didn't have some social commentary. Because
For sure.
I feel like for the most part, after OK Computer, all of Radiohead's albums, they dealt with some sort of social commentary, and
For
we'll
sure.
see later in these tracks. I think specifically this album, uh, it kind of tackles a lot of, like, changes in the modern world,
Mhm.
specifically, like, what COVID did to, uh, like, wealth as well as, like, governments and stuff like
And
that.
also just like the social world.
The social world, yeah. I
Yeah.
think this is a specifically, like, post-COVID album. Like,
Yeah.
how we had, like, post 9/11 albums? Like, there was, like, a distinctive sound that albums had after 9/11.
Yeah, American history in the past 50 years can be defined by three moments. Michael Jackson moonwalking, 9/11, and COVID. Those are the three big
Yeah.
events. there.
Yeah, and also, I think, like, especially, Tom York, being in Europe, I think COVID hit Europe pretty hard.
Mhm.
This album is, like, decidedly post-COVID, if that makes
Interesting.
sense.
Yeah, I do really love the lyricism here. Like as simple as it is, I think it's effective. Like you said, I think Tom is no stranger to this sort of social commentary, but I
Yeah.
also liked it musically, when it gets like more cinematic towards the end. There's like these
Yeah.
plucking guitars and
Yeah.
sounds that just sort of peter out like at an insane tone and he's like, "Is that still you with your hollow eyes?" I
Mhm.
like the trains don't go there. I just think is like a powerful repeating line. I think it exemplifies that like the true art and self-expression that he wants to do, or maybe the things that he used to be able to do in
Mhm.
maybe like you said, a pre-COVID world. That sort of path, that train, it's no longer there to take. Like you can't take that train anymore. Like society has moved on. Like we're all
Mhm.
indoors ordering food and
Yeah.
not talking to each other.
No, I totally hear that interpretation. I love that actually. Um, I was picking up on similar stuff, and I also did like the trains don't go there refrain.
Mm-hmm.
I also, before we like totally moved on from it, I wanted to, the whole let us raise our glasses, that thing you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is there was like a newspaper edition for the King of Limbs,
Mm.
and those lyrics were also on the King of Limbs newspaper edition.
Mm.
Um, and the King of Limbs as an album, it's like very much about like the environment also. And I wonder if this is like kind of building on the themes of your environment, your social environment and stuff like that.
Mm.
Specifically with like with wealth in this case. Um yeah. I kind of interpreted this in a more like interpersonal way with like the wall of eyes being like, when when you feel like everyone is looking at you.
Mm.
I kind of I kind of felt like he's singing from the perspective of like everyone is looking at me, and like kind of what you're saying, yeah, where it's like I've gotten in this position. Do I deserve it? Everyone is looking at me. I am not worthy. I it's like a very self-aware sort of thing.
Well, I think it's a commentary too on the fact that everything is an eye. I mean, like we have like a front camera on our phone, and
Damn,
trackers are
yeah.
tracking you everywhere, and
Yeah.
all of your data is sold, and everyone is their own, egotistical influencer, and we're not exempt from this, that is
Yeah,
trying to
true.
become a celebrity online, and you have all these eyes just scrolling through TikTok and scrolling through social media. It's everything's dictated by an algorithm. I think it's yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could sort of write or symbolize here from the wall of eyes, but it definitely
Yeah.
feels like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, it it's almost like a wall of eyes could be also, a crowd moving through like a street,
Mm,
and everyone is like on their phone or whatever,
mm.
and it's almost like literally a wall of phones approaching you as you're like walking through a crowd, like a wall of
Yeah,
eyes. Yeah. Um,
I don't condemn anyone for using their phone, but
no,
I try to not these days, honestly.
I'm so bad about it. And this,
I
by
mean,
the way,
yeah, I mean everyone is, right? So
yeah, yeah. I don't wanna, like, veer into too much of, like, we live in a society commentary, because I am very much on my phone all the time, and I think saying, "Ah, phones are bad, they ruin society," is maybe a bit too much of an oversimplification.
Well, it's also like we're in it, like we're not gonna remove phones overnight. So I think we need to think of ways to maybe make it a little better for ourselves. But
Agreed.
we're not getting rid of them. We're not Ted Kaczynskiing back into the Stone Age.
Agreed, yeah. Um, Instrumentally speaking, I really love this instrumental. It's very, meditative in its repetitiveness. I found that it was a bit more repetitive, but it wasn't like a grating kind of repetitive. It's more like the inducing you to zone out kind of
Mm,
repetitiveness, um, with this, like, plucked guitar that is so smooth. Um, I also really loved the drums, and the drums feel so warm and soft and close mic'd.
mm,
Um, it feels like they're enveloping you in this softness, which in a way adds some kind of like close quarters claustrophobic vibe.
mm.
Um, the drums kind of remind me of Grizzly Bear's earlier work, like Yellow House.
Interesting.
Um, they also had drums that were very soft and close. Um, yeah, I adore these drums. I was getting Grizzly Bear vibes, and I don't know if that's just me, but I like this instrumental a lot.
Well, do you want to move on to Teleharmonic?
Yeah, I do wanna move on to Telharmonic.
Oh, you do.
I was trying to make a segue.
Yeah, that's a hard one to do a segue for.
Yeah. Well,
We
we're
could
talking.
harmonize
Let's harmonize our.
telepathically.
Let's harmonize our opinions.
I think they're pretty
Yeah.
harmonized. This one has more of a paranoid tone. Not that the first one didn't, but I feel like this one sounds
Mhm.
more paranoid. Like
Yeah.
it immediately starts with Tom York questioning if he's going to like make it to the morning. Like it almost, almost honestly, like the first song is like you're scrolling through TikTok like late at night, and
Mhm.
then this song is like it's 4 a.m. and you need to go to bed, and you're like, I want to die. I wonder if I'm gonna wake up in the morning. No, but I
Yeah.
mean, I to me this song like feels like when I am anxious and
Mhm.
paranoid,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. I did get that paranoid and anxious vibe. And I think the lyrics are very anxious because there's a lot of questions being asked in the lyrics, like, "Where are you
Hmm.
taking me? Where are you taking me? Will I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning? How should I forget?" Like, there's so many questions um, being asked here. This this song sounded really familiar to me, and I was wondering why, and I realized because they actually played a snippet of it in the finale of Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you've seen that show, but
I have not.
it's really good. But I totally agree with you about the paranoid vibe that is being exuded.
Well, I think I also see like a reoccurring theme of sort of Tom York painting the character of this song, whether it's himself or not,
Mhm.
as sort of a just a vessel that's sort of caught in this system, which I think that's how everyone is. No one is above any sort of structure. I think we're all sort of vessels in this ride together. But you know,
Yeah,
he sort of paints himself as a fish, like getting caught in a fisherman's net. Like he sees himself as like a product of nature that is, you know, being caught and used almost. You know, much like a fish getting caught and sold and eaten. You know, he's like sold for, you know, profit in
yeah,
all these systems. And he even paints like this dichotomy with a reference to Jesus being crucified, which I mean, I don't know if that's a little extreme, but you sort of
Mm.
get the feeling like this song also is kind of like about the end of the world. At
I
least
think
like
so.
in this point of the album, I'm starting to notice the album being more about environmentalism and almost a like doomer, like crumbling world perspective. Like you even have lines here like of a world reduced to ice and fire.
Yeah,
Um, Maybe it's a bit doomer, yeah, like a bit of like a somber sound for the end of the this cycle of Earth.
yeah. Well, with what you were saying, I think a lot of people, especially, really felt how at the mercy of corporations polluting the environment they really were after COVID.
Mm,
And the reason I'm referencing COVID so much is because we'll get into this, but it is explicitly referenced in later lyrics,
mm.
and I think that it was used as kind of like a framing point for a lot of the doomerism being described here. Because I mean,
We were all
like
pretty doomer
we
that
were all
year.
pretty doomer, and I think even though COVID has ended, it exposed a lot about how the systems work in regards to corporations, like calling a lot of shots and causing a lot of wealth inequality.
I wish COVID ended. I got COVID like 4 months ago. It sucked.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
think
it's okay.
I think I had it recently, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean
Um,
though. The mass hysteria, the big sort of breakdown has
yeah,
sort of ended.
yeah, like yeah, that's what I mean. Thank you. I see this song at least thematically. What I'm seeing is it's almost like you said, a fish just along for the ride. But I see, like, for example, whining drones on a cold sea, ramming down doors, piling in. I actually see that as like police breaking into buildings and stuff,
Mm.
caught in drag nets by fishermen. Um, I feel like it's a almost you can imagine a montage of just these different scenarios being played out,
Yeah,
almost cinematic of drones polluting the environment, or like planes, I guess, or police ramming down doors, or dragnets like dredge fishing, like ruining the ocean. Um, like, and then this person who's seeing all of this happen, that is seeing the world around them crumble, saying, "Payback, payback. When are you taking me?" Almost like, okay, so you're doing all these things. When is it gonna be over? Kind of, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatable. There's a lot of, external pressures that a lot of us have to deal with nowadays. There always has been, but COVID was, pretty rough. And I think a lot of people felt like just a, like, I am just a vessel. Like, I can't really do anything about this. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
beholden to kind of what happens, and this is scary. And a lot of life feels like that too, pre and post COVID,
yeah.
There's just not a lot that people can do. And so.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean it's sort of a sad song.
it is. Yeah. Well, I think the "Where Are You Taking Me" is it is like the embodiment of not a lot someone can do, because it "Where Are You Taking Me" implies that regardless of what you want, you are being brought into this destination or this like new world, sort of.
We're all in that river.
Exactly. Um, Instrumentally, I loved the rims on the drums. Again, it's like such an intimate, uh, close environment that it sounds
Mhm.
like they're recording in. Um, I thought Tom York's voice was beautiful on this. There's like this really cool, stretchy, um, I don't know what it is, like a guitar. I don't know how they
Mhm.
made that sound, but it's really cool. Yeah, lots of really cool tom use here, and I love
Wait,
this.
Tom as in the human or the drum?
The drum element,
Okay.
my bad. Yeah,
No, I don't think there was any ambiguity. I'm just fucking
yeah.
around.
Instrumentally, I like this one a lot. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
I like there's like some little fluttering sounds around 3 to 4
Mhm,
minutes, and
mhm.
I also like really liked the percussion in this. I like how it's just kind of ringing out, and the song sort of plays itself out. I will say that's the one thing I felt was kind of repetitive about this album is every song sort of plays itself out for a minute or two, and I think
Yeah,
sometimes it works better than others.
yeah.
But that did drag on like a little bit for me. It's not like a huge critique, but there were sometimes where it felt really cathartic, and sometimes where I'm like, well, does this song really need another minute of this? I'm not
No,
sure, but
I agree, actually. I think, sometimes the repetitiveness, I agree it was a bit too much, which is why I think, um, I don't know if I'll be revisiting this album as much. Maybe when I need to
yeah.
conk out or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to read the room?
Yeah, read the room, buddy.
Read the room, a song A3. I have to admit the guitar at the beginning of this one like instantly hooked me. I don't know what about it hooked me, but it was kind of haunting and alluring. I think that was like my favorite sound thus far.
Me
I just
too.
yeah, it's just like a really original like guitar riff. Like I don't know how the hell that was being played.
I
Um
think, there's, like, a lot of use of, if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like harmonics and tapping and using the front pickup, if I'm not
and
mistaken.
definitely some effects or something.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved this guitar sound as well. I thought it was, like, I almost thought it was gonna be, like, metal when I heard
Yeah.
it.
I was kind of getting hyped. I was like, "Oh my god, like this is gonna get heavy." Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the lyrics in the beginning of this are sort of almost like mocking like mysticism. Like you have this lyric that almost I mean, there's a lot of kind of like sarcastic lines here. Like you have like can't
Mhm.
be arsed. First of all, the
Yeah,
arsed funny word in general for anyone who's
yeah.
not British. Probably still funny if you are British.
Yeah.
But then he says like a magic rainbow is so big it bends the light high. Like I think everyone wants to explain things away in a
Yeah.
mysticized way or in like the psychic realm, but actual reality has a lot of defined moving parts, and those moving parts are what is damaging the earth in some cases or damaging us. Like Tom goes on to say, this crashing currency. He says these candy
Yeah.
aerosols. I really like that line, sort of comparing pollutants to candy, because I
Yeah.
mean, so many systems and large swaths of humanity like rely on these pollutants so much that it like is like a candy. A lot of people in those industries can't stop eating.
I definitely can see it taken that way. You know what's interesting is I thought these candy aerosols, um, after, and then the line "these massive E," I thought he was gonna say e-cigs.
Mm.
So
Oh,
I
I didn't interpret that way. I was thinking the E was like an E celebrity.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting because like there is such a close dynamic. Like I feel like there's a lot of intertwining between e-celebrities and vapes, and like
I
you
didn't get
can.
the vape thing at all. That's really funny.
No, I straight up thought these candy aerosols was like referencing vapes. Like to
Interesting.
me, I'm gonna be real with you. I feel like this is Tom kind of being a bit of a boomer, and I don't know if that's I don't know if that's just me, but
Is vape an aerosol?
I,
I don't even know. Maybe it is. I don't know anything about vape. I've never even really looked into what even a vape is. I'm not gonna lie.
I well, technically it is vaporized. Vaporize? Wait, hold on. Let's look at is vape an aerosol? Let's see.
You must be reading the genius shit.
Oh,
You must be reading the genius shit. That's
interesting.
what you're doing.
Vaping produces an aerosol mist.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Interesting.
I like
No,
that
no.
interpretation though, but oh, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, the first time I was listening to it, I was like, "Oh, is he talking about, like, vapes?"
Yeah,
But
that's
sorry,
interesting.
go ahead with, the rest of your interpretation.
I kind of see that, and you might be right. I mean, we could all be right. Who knows what the fuck Tom's yapping about? But he says like these massive E and then these massive egos. So that's where I was
Mhm.
like, oh, like E, like online, like online egos.
Oh.
But I was also really thinking about like the digital world when I was listening to this in general. So I'm pretty pigeonholed into that perspective. But I
I
think he
definitely
stops
can
at
see that, though.
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe he's talking about like the average ego has become so big, like due to like the internet and social media, and uh, again, he even says like those egos like bend this crazy mystic light like higher and higher. But maybe he's just talking about vaping and getting high.
Well,
Who knows?
the reason I think he's referencing vaping is because I kind of see him at this point, at least. I mean, we have to acknowledge that Tom is, like, getting a bit older.
Yeah.
I don't know how old he is, but he's right around that age where you might start being
Those
like
fucking vapes. I hate those things.
well, I think he's at the age where you might start getting put off by what the younger generations are doing,
That's
and
fair.
to me, I see this song as kind of, like, being a bit afraid of, like, what the earth and what society is becoming. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like the vape is kind of a symbol here for, like, the younger generation ushering in change that maybe Tom doesn't like, but also being at the mercy of these, like, companies that are polluting the environment with aerosols and are, like, taking just, like, easy bribes of 500,000, which is, referenced earlier, and it's like, "Oh, for 500,000, like, you can lobby me into, like, letting kids smoke vapes and also letting companies pollute the environment with aerosols." Maybe I'm just, like, so far off the mark here. I might just be
No, you're
completely
probably right.
winging it.
I mean, I mean, who knows? But I do definitely kind of see what you're saying because I think the vapes, if it is about that, do play into a theme here of just like in general hedonism. Like, there's later
Mhm.
lines like honey for the honeybee. Like, it's almost like a person getting their little treat.
I
And I
totally
think
agree.
I think Tom like wants to kind of escape that hedonistic life, whether
Yeah.
it's brought in by the youth or even just what modernity has brought to us. I think he wants to escape it. He's like towards the end, he's like, I'm gonna count to three, keep that shit away from me. I think it's relatable, and I imagine the older you are right now, the more relatable maybe that is. We're all, you know, prey to these systems, and it can be hard to like produce real change. Um,
Yeah.
Recently I've been not to get too personal, but I've been finding
Mhm.
myself like really stripping back, like trying to be more minimal materially.
Mhm.
I've been described as purging. I purge, so I like hoard a bunch of shit and then I purge it. I don't know if you do that, but
I get unreasonably attached to every thing. I just associate a lot of memories I have with my possessions to the point where I have, um, I have a piece of paper on my desk that no longer serves me, and it just has some like writing on it, and it's gonna be here for years, to be
That's
honest.
cute though. I respect that.
Thanks, but I definitely on the hoarder side of the spectrum. I 100% agree with your interpretation. Um, especially like when he's saying things like, honestly, maybe you should read the room. What on earth? Come on, honey, read the room. To
Mm,
me, I almost see that as him like listening to some politician on TV or on the radio, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" You know what I mean? Like,
mm,
he's just so frustrated and fed up with the direction that the world is headed in. Which is why earlier when I said he was having a boomer moment, I don't mean that as like a put down or anything. I think he's just, like many people when they become older, they're just not happy with where the world goes. And
mm,
I think in this case, it's like a response to corporations destroying the environment and politicians that are letting this happen and being so tone deaf when there's like, huge wealth inequality and wealth disparity and huge issues with the way the economies are set up, revealed by COVID, and how much of a role companies play in shaping economies. And he's like listening to this politician give lip service basically, and he's like, read the room. There's like people really struggling here.
yeah. Too bad they don't give a rat's ass, huh?
I thought you were trying to transition
Oh
into
yeah, oh, like a rat's ass under a pillow.
under our pillows.
Under
Yeah.
our pillow. The next song, A4. Under our pillows. I I think this honestly feels like a pretty similar song in theme. I
Mhm.
sort of imagine uh literally a phone under a pillow and like
Mm.
almost like stinging you like look at me. But maybe that's
Yeah.
too much zoomer brain. I mean, Tom, like we were saying, is 55. Maybe it's more general than that, but I think it is speaking to a digital age like phones and computers, and Tom is trying his hardest not to fall to these like alluring hymns, which he, personifies in the beginning as these like soft whispers, like soft
Mhm.
songs under the pillow, like almost tempting you to just like give in to this hedonistic flow. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's reading into it too much, but there are definitely lines about social media. You have the line, nowadays everyone's for sharing, like noting that we live like so much of our life shared on the internet under NI.
Yeah.
And whether, talking about earlier, whether it's your phone camera or, the NSA agent that's assigned to you reading your Discord logs, uh, your life is, so much more tracked and analyzed and targeted, just with more and more crap, and it's hard to escape. And maybe that's
Yeah.
what Tom is singing about here. I also like the bridge. He's just like going like, "Don't let them take me," you know.
Yeah. I don't think you're reading into it too much because I think these lyrics are very open. Um, they're very open for interpretation. I definitely got a lot of the um, social media reference that you were describing
Mm.
with the nowadays everyone's for sharing. I felt like with the whole episodes wiped clean lyrics, to me, that's almost like deleting your like earlier in the song, he says, a slate wiped clean, a white loss of feeling. And then in the outro, he's like, episodes wiped clean, wiped clean, wiped clean. I think he's referencing like when you just nuke your social media account. And it's almost like you feel like you can restart as a person when you
Yeah,
delete everything on your social media. It's like it's your social media really is your slate, and you can feel at least like you were just wiping yourself clean, but, um, at the end of the day, you're still the same person, you can't really outrun yourself, and I feel like the soft sung hymns from under your pillows, like your phone, it's like it's like a siren in the ocean, like, beckoning to you, and it's like, share with me, like, share your life on me," you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
just imagine, like, I don't know, Instagram just being like, "Share on me," I don't know.
I definitely think there. I definitely personally think you can outrun it. I think you could just kind of turn it off, and it doesn't affect your life for the most part. But it is
Yeah.
like so crazy how connected those things are in social life. I mean, pretty much everyone's on it, right?
Yeah, well, there's also it's so funny, by the way, that you said turn it off. It reminds me of the Tyler, the Creator
Yeah.
tweet where he's like, "How is cyberbullying real? Just turn your phone off." Um, I feel like there's a lot of social pressure to,
Yeah.
like, I think it's a bit better now, like, there even might be some mystique or allure to people who aren't on social media, like, some people might find that attractive, but I think in certain circles, if you were to tell someone you're not on social media, they'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, are you a serial killer or something?"
That's me. I've become the serial killer. Dude, I'm really relating with what we're talking about because I've currently been like cutting back my social media usage, and I feel like it has increased my quality of life, uh, by a lot.
Yeah, yeah, no, I feel that. It's almost like all those studies that were like social media is negative for our quality of life, we're actually, like, making a good point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
love the internet. I'm a person who I used to feel really guilty for being online, but I actually just I like being online. But I've realized
Mhm.
the distinction. I don't like social media.
I get
I
what you
like
mean.
I like the internet where it's not as commodified. I like when there's just fun websites where people are hanging out
Yeah,
or even just like using it as a tool. Whereas I
same.
just social media is just this endless algorithm of pain.
Yeah, I think the internet is such a valuable tool for bringing people together, and I don't wanna be a doomer. I genuinely believe in my heart of hearts the internet is a good thing, and it does serve a positive for many, many people in terms of forming community, finding community, but you can't you can't help but acknowledge the dystopian side of it where
Hmm.
I saw this clip of, Gypsy Rose?
I've heard of it.
So she, was a victim of Munchausen. Her mom would, like, horribly abuse her and, convince her that she had, like, a bunch of chronic illnesses, and eventually um she and her then boyfriend, conspired to and killed her mom, and so she went to prison for a while, but when she got released, she was being treated like this huge, huge celebrity, and she blew up on TikTok and blew up on social media and was involved in like a bunch of memes. And one of those more prominent memes I saw recently, someone who was doing an electronic music set at like a festival took that clip of her just like memeing
Hmm.
or just like having fun on the internet and I guess, partaking in her celebrity status and played it as the backdrop for this electronic music set and then turned it into a beat. And I don't know, like, that feels very dystopian to me. Like, at the end of the day, this
Yeah,
is
that's it.
still
Everything you just told me was the most insane thing I've heard in a while.
right, like, I mean, imagine this happening in, like, can you see this happening in a pre-COVID world?
Maybe
Or,
not. Yeah, I don't know. It's
like, I
definitely within the past 5 years kind of thing,
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of losing the plot a bit here, and that's kind of the vibe I get from this song, especially with the way it's sung. It's sung like he has this very, like, dejected voice, and he's, like, kinda moaning. He sounds like he's having a bad trip, basically, and the
Yeah.
guitars are so, like, woozly and wobbly, um, and then it, like, turns into this very eerie, creepy drone with these,
Yeah.
like, dissonant guitars, and then there's, like, this really weird it's like a really long, droning outro. It feels like someone just having a very bad time.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of almost feel like like it sounds like metal ringing out, like computers just
Yeah.
fucking dying. Just a ring of pings. Like I don't know, you just like feel the churn of of a computer as it tapers out. I actually, I was talking about how uh it's repetitive how these songs sort of
Mhm.
taper out sometimes, but this
Mhm.
is one of the few where I'm like, I actually really appreciate that this one tapers out like that, because I think that the sounds toward the end, like you said, are so eerie
Yeah.
and computerized that it really plays into the message here pretty
I
well.
I agree, and I think it makes the next song, "Friend of a Friend," it makes it much more impactful, which I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
do you wanna talk about "Friend of a Friend"?
Yeah. Do you want to start first? I need to drink some water.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, it's I thought it was a really cool transition, like, all those eerie metallic droning noises transition into, like, almost instantly, Tom is singing here with a very soft and
Yeah.
smooth falsetto and just, like, a very minimal, like, bass guitar. Um, it was a cool transition, I felt. Also very cinematic. I feel like this album is very cinematic. I was telling myself when I was listening to it, I wouldn't be surprised if every single one of these songs appears on TV at some point as, like a season finale
In
song.
Severance.
No,
Severance
really.
season 2. I could see it.
Like, I really do think every song on here has the potential to be like a season finale song. Um, yeah, and so this song is specifically, like, the COVID song, I think,
Hmm.
and it's
Interesting.
yeah, like, so for example, the chorus, "All the window balconies, they seem so flimsy as our friends step out to talk and wave and catch a piece of the sun."
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
didn't take. Now I totally see your interpretation. I didn't see that.
Yeah, so it's like, because you remember during COVID, like,
Yeah.
in the news, it was like, in Italy when people were on, like, a really extreme lockdown, people would
Interesting.
be out and about on their balconies. People would, like, actually talk to each other, um, and there was, like, this weird time where during the isolation and the loneliness, people sought out more human connection by being outside, by being in the open, and in the environment, which I guess is now being dirtied by a bunch of these corporations that are being referenced, and it was, like, this really weird liminal like, not weird, but I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? It's like during this
Hmm.
time where everything is closing down, people are outside and talking to each other, and I think you'll remember, like, dolphins came back to the canals of Italy, I think it was. Like, nature had, like, a moment to actually breathe, and
Hmm.
it took this, like, horrible, horrible pandemic to make that happen, which is I think it's kind of strange, right? Like, this horrible,
Yeah.
horrible thing actually resulted in some things being a positive, I guess if you wanna see the silver lining.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at like hybrid work positions or work from home. I think there are some industries where that has greatly benefited people's quality of life.
Yeah. Um, so I feel like that's kind of the state that Tom is channeling here on this song, but I think it does end on a bit of a pessimistic note where he's, like, referencing, um, how the how a bunch of corporations came in, like Uber Eats or like, you know, Amazon, um, they kind of took advantage of COVID and profited so much because people ended up using their services a lot more. Like on the outro, the lyrics are, "All of that money, where did it go? Where did it go? In somebody's pocket, a friend of a friend, all the loose change."
Mm. Yeah, actually, it's really interesting that you mentioned this as in a post-COVID context, because I wasn't really thinking about that when I listened, but that totally makes sense now that I make that connection. But I was definitely seeing a lot of the themes. Like this song feels like about the lack of connection that people actually have today, which in a post-COVID context makes sense. I think COVID definitely accelerated uh, that way of life. Like we all talk to each other in very small bits and pieces, and
Mhm.
without much face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
Uh, like even like post-COVID, like there was a bit where everyone was like, "Oh, we got to get outside and talk to each other." But I mean, because of how our systems were so changed, I think it really
Mhm.
just accelerated a sort of shelved like inside life. Everything is stripped back, and it really is like he says, like just these cutout shapes. Like we're just online as partial selves, whatever we choose to show, our avatars, and just smiling. And like he even says like I feel like the line about sparkles is like enjoying like the dopamine hits. Like add some
Mm,
sparkles to create the right effect. Like making a fucking TikTok and adding
yeah.
sparkles.
I
Uh,
love that.
yeah.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but YouTube recently did this thing where if you press subscribe, it will literally give you sparkles. Like maybe I'm
Oh
reading too
wow!
much into it,
Everyone
but
should subscribe to our channel and see the sparkles. Um,
everyone should see the sparkles.
yeah, I mean, Thomas saying, what can you do? I think it is sad we are confined to these sort of worn out spaces where people tear each other apart on social media, and there isn't the actual face to face appreciation. And I mean, I was speaking earlier. I've been finding myself using less social media, but
Yeah.
it makes sense in a post-COVID context. It's funny because now I understand the window balconies line. I think you're
Hmm.
totally right. That is about literally like I remember people talking about, seeing their family and like they could only really like wave to them from the balcony.
Yeah.
You couldn't
Yeah.
actually go in and because someone had COVID or you had to distance or but I was also just thinking about how lonely actual infrastructure is in general, not
Yeah.
even in a post-COVID context, but in a context of like the past 50, 60, 70 years. Like new housing developments are very isolating. And I like honestly, like balconies are nice to like catch a bit of fresh air. And that was definitely a reprieve during the pandemic. But
Yeah.
in a way, I sort of like see all the balconies up in the sky and they do seem kind of like socially flimsy. Like it's not actually a place where people hang out. It's almost like a place where you get away. And all of the
Yeah, like to
structures of
get some
society,
air.
yeah, and like these
Yeah.
structures in society, everyone's cooped up in and there aren't social spaces for people to like really exist. And COVID definitely accelerated that. So I
Yeah.
definitely see that.
I agree, yeah. And, you were mentioning how, you see a lot of people like on social media, you get into arguments with people on social media. I mean, for all you know, those people could be friends of a friend with how
Yeah.
interconnected everything is these days. And, I think the friend of a friend here, it almost has like I feel like it's almost like a pessimistic view of friend of a friend because on the one hand, you had friends of a friend that you would, hang out with on the balconies. The same people that you would connect with online or on the balconies during COVID are the same people that you are, later arguing with in post COVID, or also um, are pocketing your money post COVID, like politicians or corporations. You know
True.
what I mean?
And Tom's saying he doesn't want any part of it. You know what he's kind of saying? He's saying, I quit. Song B2, I quit.
I quit.
I really like the intro to the song. I think the beat is very hypnotic. I actually really like how minimal the lyrics are in this one because not that the songs have been lyrically dense, but this one's definitely way more minimal.
Mm,
And I think this one's meant to just kind of evoke more of a feeling out of you. At least that's what I got. And it's sort of like a feeling of like this is it, like at the end of the road. It kind of feels like death.
yeah. I think it does evoke a sense of the end of the road. Um, I guess hearkening to the title itself, I quit.
Hmm.
I like the stuttery guitars and the piano is very beautiful. I like how you can hear the strings
Yeah.
as the guitarist
Yeah,
is
you can hear it
changed.
scratching. Like you can hear like
Yeah.
yeah.
It makes for a very intimate experience, listening experience, and the drums are so soft and it feels very intimate as well. I kind of had like I maybe took the lyrics very literally, but
Mm.
he says, "I quit, my head is lit, a piece of me." I took it literally, like he's kind of had enough. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? He wants to remove himself from this. Um, I kind of imagine, maybe this is just me, I kind of imagine like a post not post a near apocalyptic world. Like for example, wild ghosts, wild feelings, leaning windmills. To me, I read that as like imagine the earth being misshapen, much like the earth in the cover. the album cover being misshapen due to like rising sea levels, or you know, the earth starting to crumble apart, or you have wind turbines, right? We're switching to wind turbine energy, but hopefully it's not too little too late. And maybe it's like leaning over in this world. Um, I almost see it as like we've switched to like green energy in this world that he's portraying,
That's an
but
optimistic view of that.
well, you know, we're getting closer. I think green energy is set to overtake coal soon, which is really exciting. But I still see it as like he still wants to quit. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
out of here, you know?
I definitely see the apocalyptic view. I actually, it's interesting you pointed out those lines because I think my favorite lyric in this, and there aren't that many, but I do really like the imagery of leaning windmills. That's like just a cool imagery in general, whether you take it
Yeah.
more optimistically or pessimistically. I can
Yeah.
definitely see it in a chaotic sense as well. You know, the earth
Yeah.
sort of crumbling and the feelings are all manic and wild, and the windmills are fucking leaning because there's it's chaos. But yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that line, and I like a lot of the sounds. Like you said, it's very intimate. And Tom
Mhm.
York is just kind of saying, "I'm done. I'm doing something else. I'm going the other way." Um, yeah. Honestly, this one peters out, and you're just like, "Damn!" Like I was just sitting there, like, "Damn."
Yeah. It's that was the impression I got from it. I was like, "Tom, I hope you're okay," pretty much.
And then
Um,
we move into Bending Hectic.
yeah, I think this title is really clever because in the instrumental, like, you literally hear bending guitars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the guitar strings are being bent. Um, it sounds like a wandering almost. It's a very sweet, soft sounding guitar. I like it a lot, at least to open. Um, before it transitions into like this wall of
Yeah.
noise that I did not see coming, and he starts like wailing. I think it's a really cool instrumental.
I think this is my favorite song on the whole album.
Me too.
Because I think I quit into Bending Heretic and then or Bending Hectic, not Heretic. At the very end of the song, it just gets really loud. Like there's this really loud like THX like intro type sound, and it
Mhm.
just gets really really loud, and then bam, like now we're a rock band again. Like we're like Radiohead, like heavy
Yeah.
distorted guitars, and that felt really cathartic. I was like really happy that there was a moment like that on here because I was kind of wondering if it was just going to be kind of that same note throughout the whole album. And that
Yeah.
really broke it apart. And yeah, like I said, felt really cathartic. I sort of see this as like post escape. Like the last song was like almost like accepting a removal in some way, whether it be death literally, but maybe it just, you know, leaving some of these realms that the character is really frustrated with, whether it be
Yeah.
socially, technologically, whatever. And this is just like driving like literally off the cliff on a bend, like on a turn. It's like a turn away from society. It's like slamming on the brakes and saying like I'm going the other way. So
Yeah.
it feels very bittersweet.
I
But because
completely
also
agree.
like the Tom or the main character of this song like almost kind of comes off like they don't really want to turn away. Like later in the song, like it says, "I'll force myself to turn." Like
Yeah.
no one's gonna bring him down or bring him away from this except for himself, and he's committed to letting go.
Yeah. I totally agree with everything you said. I pick up on a lot of kind of themes of escapism here, where it's like, this character, despite maybe not wanting to, they are almost like telling themselves, so here in these lyrics, "No one's gonna bring me down. No, no way and no how. I'm letting go of the wheel." It's almost like, imagine someone who's just so tired and fed up with the way things are. It's like, regardless of what they want, they just have to accept that things are not going their way. So it's like, "Okay, Jesus, take the wheel," you know? If I fly off the bend in the road, so be it. Um, yeah. I I think the instrumental, there's also a lot of, escapism kind of in the airiness of it.
Well, and then you escape, you literally escape at the end and just go into a fucking rock song.
Yeah, it's almost like a daydream, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It feels like a daydream. Um, I was pretty curious about this song, like, how it was made and stuff, and there's not really anything special about this, but just, like, a cool Easter egg. Um, the person who produced this song, Sam, Pets Davies, has also produced for Frank Ocean. I just wanted to as a Frank Ocean stan, I just felt like that needed to be shared.
Hey, you know me, Alex.
I
Hey,
do.
we go back a long ways. You
We
know me.
do. Yeah, you know me, the final song, B4,
Before.
on this, the Smile project, I, there was a bit of a bait and switch for me with this song. I thought it was gonna be, like, a positive ending to this otherwise fairly depressing album, like, you have lyrics
Yeah.
like, "You with your X-ray specs, you can see inside me or not. I'm a boxer on the ropes. You are standing in my light. You've wound yourself around me like you know me. I am smelling user, something bright and clean and shiny, and when my back is turned, the point of a blade. Always you know me, always you know me, you know me." Um, so there's, like, these reassuring lines for the most part, but then it turns into self-doubt at the very end. "Don't think you know me, don't think that I am everything you say."
Interesting. I sort of interpret it as pretty pessimistic from the get-go.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, I sort of see him sort of again just playing on the themes of being watched. Like he feels like the boxer that has this spotlight on him, and he feels like just this user, just this profile that is bright and clean and shiny and perfect. And the second he tries to turn away from it, people are trying to stab him in the back and bring him back
Mm.
into it.
Okay, no, no, you're so right. I
No,
think
I think
this totally
we
flew over my head.
we could both be right. I just
No,
I
but,
kind of
I think it
appreciate the
is
more
sarcastic.
optimistic. I kind of appreciate the optimistic view though, because this is so
No,
sad.
you know what, though? I think it is sarcastic. I think the "you know me" it's like a passive aggressive, "Oh, you know
Yeah.
me."
Always
Like,
you know me. Always you know me.
yeah.
Something a Donald
I
Trump
think
tweet.
no, I I think I was straight up wrong. I think this is just pessimistic all the way through, but, the sarcasm just, completely flew over my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a ballad about perception, almost sort of like a ballad about how like parasociality in a
Mhm.
way, like feeling close to people you know nothing about online. Um, the character, of this song seems to feel like kind of annoyed by that give and take.
Mhm.
Um, you know, like you said, the sarcastic lines like always you know me, always you know me. I think
Yeah.
Tom is like kind of giving you a message at the end of the album. Like if you're gonna take anything away from this, maybe try not to connect so deeply to random people that you don't know or like literal avatars and maybe focus on the people that maybe actually matter in your life day to day.
Yeah.
At least that's
Like,
the hopeful message that I try to take from it because like we said it's sort of pessimistic and sad.
yeah, like, it's, try to embody the state of being on the balcony is at least the positive aspects of that.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's more references to the environment too, like, uh, old galaxies in a town that's underwater. None of this is mine, and a town that's underwater, none of this is mine. Um, I think that is a pretty explicit reference to rising sea levels, maybe?
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say explicit. I feel like these lyrics are very open-ended.
Yeah,
Um,
I wouldn't quite say explicit, but I agree with your interpretation. I think that is just like basically a figure looking at rising seawater or, all of these things that have happened in time, and just being like, I mean, there's nothing I could do about that. It wasn't
yeah.
me, but I'm just here.
Yeah, it's well, it kind of plays in with all the themes we've been talking about earlier, like this person who, is at the mercy of the world they inhabit, and they might not necessarily like the direction it's going in, but here they are regardless, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's, like, a very solemn piano playing throughout this.
Mhm. It's
Um,
pretty.
It's pretty. It feels very mystical, very
Mm-hmm.
much it feels like looking into space or like stargazing, and then there's these cool interesting strings that come in, these cool like metallic drums. I think it's a very pretty song. It feels like a rightful end, you know what I mean, to the
Yeah.
album.
Shout out to the falsetto. Tom still got it. Tom still got his tomfoolery.
Tom still got his tomfoolery. I thought, his falsetto was great. I think sometimes his voice, you could hear the age in his voice, which I thought was kind of cool. It's almost like a grizzled
Yeah.
Tom, like
Rugged old Tom.
yeah, it's like, imagine, like, a
All the
character from a
people.
movie you know and
Mm-hmm.
love coming back seasoned to, like, teach, like, the younger character. I don't know.
Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, well, I wasn't think for that, I wasn't thinking of Old Man. I was thinking more like if you wanna get really into the reference I was making, um, I was thinking of Snake, like, coming
Mm.
back as an old guy in, like, Metal Gear 4.
Yeah. I mean, I will say here, I think, and maybe we can kind of move into closing thoughts here.
Mhm.
I think that honestly, it didn't really feel too much like old man yell at cloud. I could definitely see how, and I'm not saying you said this, but I could see how someone could have that perception coming away from this, like, oh, this is just like whiny or whatever. Because I think that's like a big critique that a lot of people give to Tom York, but I just don't really agree. I think that a lot of what Tom is talking about here, although it's maybe played out, like it's not the most original commentary. Like
Mhm.
obviously, a lot of people talk about this kind of stuff, especially in
Mhm.
music. I still
Yeah.
think it rings true. Like it's accurate to how a lot of people feel and how things have been moving, and so I don't think it's out of touch. I guess is what I wanted to say. I think
No.
it feels it feels relevant to talk about the things that he's talking about. And while I maybe wouldn't sit down and listen to this album very often, or maybe even ever again, I I respect the artistry. Like I think it was pretty good. I appreciate the soundscapes that literally just three musicians are able to make. I think that's the most impressive part to me.
I
Like
agree.
they sound very real and big and sometimes very small and intimate. And that's like just a really a lot of impressive soundscapes that the three people who made this did here. And yeah, I think my favorite songs were I Quit into Bending Hectic. I think Bending Hectic is my favorite song. I just think
Same.
that felt really cathartic. It was really great to have that moment towards the end of the album.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a pretty good record. What did you think?
I pretty much agree with everything you said. I can see why someone would also think of it as Old Man Yells at Cloud. I think unfortunately, like, calling someone a boomer has such a negative connotation, so maybe I shouldn't have gone to that extreme, but I do kind of see someone who's a bit older, more mature, kind of not liking the direction
For
of
sure.
of things that are going on around them. And I think it is relevant. I think a lot of people feel this way. Like even uh, I'm not old. I'm still like relatively young.
You old ass. You're so old. No, I'm just kidding.
I still have these opinions of I don't know. Like sometimes I look around and I'm like, are we really like? Is this really the direction we want to go in? And I think it's like a very normal thing to feel this way. And I think Tom is really speaking to that part of everybody. Um, I'm also pretty impressed by the instrumentation. It was a lot more minimal. It if I could describe it in one way, it feels um like more like how you have the main show and then you have a spin-off show? This feels
Yeah.
a bit like the spin-off show where it's like a bit, more low key, not as grand in scale and not as ambitious, but it doesn't have to be, and that's not a bad thing either. It's just a more intimate, personal and smaller scale project, which is totally fine. It doesn't, like he doesn't have to live up to the legacy of Radiohead. He can just do
Yeah, I
his
mean,
own thing.
honestly, they don't even really need to release another record if they don't want to. I think that their discography will stand the test of time. Um, but I think it is cool to sort of have these offshoots and try sort of some different sounds. I definitely agree. It sort of does. I hate to compare it to Radiohead, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's two members are like a that are a big part of
Yeah,
Radiohead. It's gonna be
yeah,
similar to Radiohead, but I think it is more of a subdued Radiohead for
yeah.
sure.
I think so too. And you know what? Maybe it's annoying to make the comparison, but
It's valid.
I think it's totally fine to make the comparison.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. Overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would revisit it, but Bending Hectic was great, and I have revisited that one since. I think it's a cool song.
Yeah. So let us know what you thought in our comment sections on Spotify and YouTube. Feel free to check us out on Twitter at musicpostingpod for updates on what we're listening to next. As always, I'm Astrid,
I'm Alex.
and see ya.
Thanks for listening. Later, skaters.
Later, skaters.
Yeah, later, skaters.